Well, good morning and welcome to the radar room. It's been about a week, I think, since our last update. Part of the reason is in some of this, with everything that's going on, it is hard to know what to say. It's really terrible to see what's happening in Israel at the moment, and there has been points where I've just thought, well, I don't want to talk about it. But I think it is important that we have regular updates, and especially for those of us who are not watching as much of the news, just to give you an update on what's going on, but more importantly than that, on how we can pray over what's happening at the moment. As things stand at the moment this morning, last night Israel had some what they called a tactical raid into Gaza, so some ground troops went in. This isn't the ground invasion that looks like is going to happen very soon. This is reports that there was an operation, and they called it a relatively large operation, that aims at attacking Hamas positions in Gaza. That happened last night, so it's looking more and more likely that we are close to the ground invasion taking place, but we don't know. Yesterday, there was something that took place at the UN. Israel were calling for the Secretary of the UN to resign after he talked about the state of what's going on in Gaza and said it's important to recognise that the attacks didn't happen in a vacuum, and that certainly came across like he was justifying the Hamas attacks. Whether that was the case or not is another question, but that's certainly how it came across, and that's why Israel is asking for him to resign. He has, I believe, apologised for that and said his comments have been taken out of context, but that's an ongoing situation at the moment. In terms of prayer, and I'm not going to keep you long this morning. First, at the moment, we've got to pray for the hostages to be returned. We thank God for the 4 that have been returned. However, the number of hostages, the estimated hostages, because we don't know how many there are, has gone up today. Israel revised the number up. Remember, there was about 50 people or more unaccounted for. Nobody knew if they were dead or if they were hostages, so it's gone up from 222 to 224. So even though 4 have been released, the number has gone up. So let's pray for the hostages. We need to pray for the wounded, for the displaced, for those who've lost loved ones. But I think as well it's important to pray for discernment for Israel's leaders. They are obviously grieving at the moment, and there's always a danger that you can, when you're grieving, do something in anger that may come back to be a problem later on. So we need to really pray for guidance and discernment and wisdom amongst the politicians and amongst the military, and that Israel will show the appropriate restraint, whilst at the same time they're in a position where they have to deal with Hamas. We should pray for mercy for those who are suffering in the Gaza Strip as well. We should pray for restraint in the wider Arab world. It's gone a little quiet in Iran at the moment in terms of their vocalness, whether they feel like they've had their bluff called, so to speak. I don't know, but let's pray for that this won't escalate further in the Middle East, and let's pray as well that there is still this lack of recognition of Hamas as a terrorist organisation, and we see it on the BBC, we see it in some world leaders, almost separating Hamas as to having a political front and a military wing, but it's one organisation. The BBC is still saying, as recognised by some governments, including the UK, and have not gone that far to say a terrorist organisation. But it's ironic, because when you say a Hamas official, a Hamas official has reported, or a government official from Gaza has reported this or said this, we forget that a government official in Gaza is somebody from Hamas, who is a terrorist organization. So again, do we believe what's being said there? And one of the first casualties in war can often be truth. And the propaganda war is ongoing. I saw a report on the BBC actually today where there's two little boys, one from Gaza, one from Israel, and there was an example of how social media is using mistruths, because both of these boys died, but on both sides there was denials that these children died and accusations that it was propaganda, and the truth becomes very murky at this point. And we need to pray that truth will shine, that truth will be seen, and that the propaganda war, that can influence the hearts and minds of so many people. I mean, it can influence the way governments make the decisions. You just look at what's happening in the Labour Party at the moment, where Keir Starmer has took a stand saying he supports Israel, and now he's had, I think, 11, maybe it was more, Labour councillors resign. Now, as I understand, most of these councillors were Muslim councillors, so we can see why, but that puts political pressure on him to change his stance. That will happen. We need to remember that there are Muslims in all levels of political society in this country and in others, and that will influence decisions. So I think it's very important. I know propaganda doesn't seem important, but it affects the politics. It affects the decisions that gets made. If Keir Starmer changes his stance, it's because of the pressure that's coming on him. So we need to pray for truth, but we also need to pray that this political pressure won't unduly influence the political decisions that are being made. I hope this has been a helpful update. I realise it's not too long, but I just wanted to give you a few prayer points and ways that we can pray. At the moment, I'm keeping an eye on the news as much as I can. If there's developments, I'll try and bring them to you. But for now, have a good day, and please pray for this situation in Israel. Pray for Israel. Pray for those prayer points, and thank you to the Christian Friends of Israel. Got a lot of those prayer points from you, so thank you for that. God bless you, and see you soon.